As you've noticed, the setup of worship is slightly different today and a little chilly. So we apologize that it's cool. Believe it or not, it has come up about probably 20 degrees since we arrived at the church. It was very chilly this morning. A few announcements to bring to your attention today. The youth group's going to be meeting this afternoon at the Offline Board Game Cafe on Rossay Avenue. The cost is $5. We're meeting at 2 o'clock. We'll be there approximately an hour or so. Any of the youth that want to join us, come and join us. If any families want to come and join us this afternoon. Children's programs tomorrow evening from 6:15 until 7. And today is birthday Sunday, so there is cake after worship. We also have a special cake because it's Megan's last Sunday with us. So she will be back to visit when she's home. She has made it very clear that she'll come back and visit. So, but we do have a special cake for Megan as well, and we thank her for all that she's done for us over the last many months. So, thank you. And I'd like to say a special thanks and welcome to Tanya Chapman for being here this morning. And Tanya is going to be guiding us in our discussions in a little bit. And I noticed many of you were reading the papers before you sat down. But, you know, the paper may change in a bit too, so don't get too close to that paper. She'll be guiding us as to what we're going to be doing with the papers and the markers in a little bit. And Christopher has an announcement this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The 40 Days of Generosity was launched last week. How many of you have been following on our website, on Facebook, on Twitter, and seeing about our generosity and our acts of kindness throughout the week? Nice and high, let's see. That's great. Have you enjoyed week one?
Yes.
Great. There'll be more coming. So the 40 Days of Generosity is our Lenten project, and it's meant to be a time of sacrifice and of self-giving. And so, as you came in, you will have noticed the 40 Days of Generosity board. There are envelopes that look like this on that board. And they have different amounts. So we have, the ones I have in my hand are 40 times 10 cents. So if you can do quick math, that's $4. 40 times $2, that's $80. And 40 times 25 cents, that's $10. So this, for me, is my Lenten sacrifice. That represents approximately 1 extra large Tim Hortons tea a day for the Lenten period. So find the thing that you'd like to give up and consider giving that to the church, what you would spend on that to the church for that time. If your vice is chocolate, Colleen, then maybe it's what you would spend on a chocolate bar in the course of a week or course of a day. If your vice is Java Moose coffee, well, we know those are more than $2.40. Maybe it's you're a child who gets an allowance for doing some work, and maybe you'll decide for the 40 days of Lent that you want to give up your 10 or 25 cent weekly allowance. I don't know what, that's probably 1980 talk, isn't it? Maybe it's a weekly trip to the dollar store that you do that you might want to sacrifice. But join us in our Lenten journey. Continue to watch Facebook and the website. There'll be more tasks and more challenges as the week goes on. And thank you so much for your support so far.
Dreaming up the tasks and challenges is the fun part. Does anybody have any other announcements to share this morning? On the second Sunday of Lent, I welcome you to worship today and remind you that your being here is a gift. Each of you being here is a true blessing. We gather to share our joys and concerns in this community of faith. We lift up prayers for ourselves, our family, our friends, our community, and the world. Are there any celebrations that you'd like to share today? It's Myra's birthday. Does anybody else have a birthday today or this week? Jerry Higgins' birthday. Christopher has a birthday coming up on Friday. All And are there any worries or concerns that you would like to share today? As a community, we gather together during all moments in our life and faith, both those we've named and left unnamed, and we lift them to God, our hope and our Creator. Lent can be a journey together and alone. Lent can be a temptation for each and everyone. Lent can be a challenge to see more than eyes. Lent can be a pathway through sunset to sunrise. We light our Christ candle this morning to guide us on our Lenten journey. And we're going to join our voices in singing our opening song this morning. The words are on your song sheet. You can remain seated. It's probably going to be a lot easier. And the song is Here I Am to Worship. And if you don't have a song bulletin, you can share with somebody at your table. Let us join in the call to worship that's printed on the bulletin. Lent calls us to journey this and every day, following Jesus wherever he leads us. Lent calls us to journey to the place where God comes to us. Lent calls us to worship together, to tell future generations the good news. Lent calls us to practice justice, to bring us hope to all people. Lent calls us to faithful living, to trust the one who gives us life. Lent calls each of us to practice living on mission. Lent calls us to journey with God. Let us worship God, who walks with us this and every day. Dear Lord, Loving God, as we continue our Lenten journey, we come before you today with gratitude. Gratitude for the opportunity to share with each other and to give to each other. Gratitude for the example of Jesus, who teaches us to love our neighbors and serve those around us. Please open our eyes to new visions of service and faithful living. Thank you for the opportunity to expand our hearts, our communities, and our lives through your grace. Amen. Deep in our hearts, there is a common vision. Deep in our hearts, there is a common soul. Deep in our hearts, there is a common story, telling creation that we are one. And before we hear our faith story of today that's going to be shared by Valerie Grant, we're going to sing together "The Church is Wherever." The church is wherever God's people are praising, singing God's goodness for joy on this day. The church is wherever disciples of Jesus remember his story and walk in his way. The church is wherever God's people are singing, sharing good news with a song and a voice. The church is wherever as Christians we're telling our stories of faith and our message rejoice. So I'll invite Valerie to join us and share her faith story that will be added to our story jar.
Good morning, everyone. When Alicia started this series of reflections from members of our church on their faith journey, I reflected on my own path as I sat through the services, and it brought memories back to me that I hadn't thought of in years. So when Alicia asked McGregor to share his faith journey, McGregor actually offered this opportunity to me. What a guy. What a guy.
That's McGregor.
So generous.
Yeah.
We have a little more faith in you.
Yeah. And so because he's so great, I will talk about him. I cannot talk about my faith journey without talking about McGregor. I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland for the most part. My name was Valerie Bemister, and I was baptized at Wesley United Church. My 3 siblings and I, and my parents, settled at St. James United Church when I was in grade 5, and this became my home church. My earliest memory is of Sunday school and being given a verse to read from the Bible on a wee tiny little piece of paper to memorize. I think I really love this for some reason. I have great memories of it. In the following week, you go back to Sunday school, and if you memorized your verse, you get one of those little stars next to your name. And then through the year, all these little stars. It was just very exciting. I sang in the junior choir, the senior choir. I attended youth group, and I taught Sunday school. Our junior and senior choir sang often in small outport communities during an evensong. And I have great memories of that, getting in cars and vans and going off as a group together in the evening to these small little churches. And we also often went to seniors' homes to share our music. So music was a huge part of my faith, is a huge part of my faith journey. And I came from a very musical family who played piano, accordion, guitars, harmonica, and we all sang. Any voice training that I received all came from the various choir directors over the years. My first choir director was Bob Rose, and he played the organ in our church. We had a beautiful pipe organ at St. James Church, and people came from everywhere to listen to his recitals. And I have to admit, I had quite a crush on him, actually, which is probably why I continued to attend church through my teen years. My parents were active in church committees, and I remember their great excitement while on the outreach committee sponsoring the Jiang family, who were refugees from Vietnam in the late 1970s. And I think that experience influenced my own desire to help our Syrian family today. In Newfoundland, we have a tradition of flower services. Does anybody know what I mean by that? Having a flower service? They take place at cemeteries. And it's a service in memory of your loved ones, and it happens in June of every year. And families work on their families' graves throughout those weeks leading up to the service. And so we used to go to the graveyard every spring, and I don't know, maybe we just didn't have a lot to do, but when we were kids, because we loved going around, venturing around all the grave sites, reading the names, how old the people were, walking all over Joey Smallwood, and it was a highlight of our spring, and it still happens today. I go back home, and all my relatives' graves are there, and every now and again I do happen to get there for the flower service, and it's just bigger every year. So I eventually moved on to finish my schooling in Halifax, and the first thing I did when I moved in there was to look for a new church. And right around the corner was Fort Massey United Church. So I walked there one Sunday morning, and to my delight, I knew nobody in Halifax. There was Reverend Sturridge, and he was our minister from St. James United Church, and he was preaching in his retirement there. So it was just awesome. This was the beginning of my realization of how important my connection to the church was for me, because in that unfamiliar city, when I knew no one, I had the familiarity of church. Portland United Church was the first church I attended when I moved to St. John. Spencer Bellier was the choir director, and he also had a handbell choir that I had great fun being part of. And it was there that I met a woman. Her name was Frida Bishop. And she is someone who I look up to. She's no longer living now, but Frida's husband died shortly after her 4 children were born. So she raised those kids all by herself. She lived in the North End, and she had several cats and dogs. And she invited me to her house for dinner every week before choir practice. She worked full-time, she cared for kids and animals, and she had very little. And I was brought into the fold of her home in such a kind and caring way. I just couldn't figure out how she could find the time or the resources to include me. The way she reached out to me is what I think Jesus asks us to do. I came to St. John to be with McGregor. We met in Newfoundland, and once I finished university, I followed him here. And after we got married, we had to decide on a church. Of course, McGregor attended St. Paul's across the Common his whole entire life. So we started over there. But I really longed for the familiarity of the United Church. So when we went to St. David's, Ian McLean was the minister here in Wilma. We decided that this would be our church home. And what a great decision it was. Wilma and I led the junior choir, and I have participated under many choir directors since 1985. Wilma and Bonnie Williams, sitting there at the table with me today, and the Brzezinskis, Cindy, and now Christopher. The nice thing when I go home back to St. James is some of the members of the choir are still there, and they welcome me. I think we do the same thing here when we see previous members from time to time. All are welcome back. The other day, I met Sally Campbell, Shirley Denton, and Cheryl Kyle, and it was like we saw each other yesterday. It's just awesome. In the late 1990s, Blake McCullough felt that the board needed more women and younger people. And I was in my mid-30s at the time, and I had 3 little kids and a full-time job. But he decided that I should be part of the board, and so I was. And I became the chair of the board in 2000, and since that time participated in lots of other committees, recently including the trustees and presbytery. I really wanted my kids to feel the same sense of community that I felt my whole life, and that has been our experience here. Although they don't come often, they feel at home when they are here. Rachel was encouraged to follow her interest in voice because of her participation at St. David's. People like Sally Ann and Pierre, Jane, Alicia, Margaret Prime, Ron Vincent, just to name a few, all helped her with her confidence. It's just a few kind words, but it means so much to a young person. She also has great memories of Sunday school. For the years that Sue Atkinson led a group of unruly kids. And I filled in for Sue once, and I could not wait to get back to choir. I've struggled through trying times, of course, as we all do. My brother died when he was 33 years old, and Reverend Bob Stevens was by my side within minutes of me getting that news, and I'll never forget that. And the same support was felt to me and my family in Newfoundland when my father died a few years ago, and then with the illness of my mother last fall. My mom doesn't have anybody in St. John's any longer. Her kids all live elsewhere. But she has her church family, and they are huge for her. The ladies of the UCW, her friendship group, her ukulele group, choirs, etc. And I got all kinds of calls when I was there, and visits and food, and it's just amazing. So St. James United Church is her family, and St. David's is my family. I really feel connected here, and I feel part of the community here. My faith continues to grow. My parents and McGregor's parents have had deep faith that for years I really couldn't understand. But over time, I have developed and deepened my own faith, and our dear friends George and Linda have an unquestioning faith themselves, which inspires me and helps me to grow. I feel fortunate that I was born into the United Church of Canada, as I really connect to the inclusiveness that the United Church stands for. We are here for all people, whether we're mentally ill, addicted, gay, Muslims, it doesn't matter, just as Jesus would have us do. Thanks.
And thank you to Valerie for adding to our story jar. And please, if any of you are sitting there thinking, I would love to share my story, come and see me. I'll add your name to my list. Because the hope is to continue this through Lent, but to continue it till after Lent as well. And like I said, we're taking the stories that are in our jar, we're going to eventually have them added to a book with pictures that people will be able to see the story of St. David's and who we are. As I mentioned earlier, it is Birthday Sunday, so we're going to sing our birthday song before we move into our Living on Mission of today. Happy birthday to you, to Jesus be true. May God's richest blessings be always with you. I'm going to invite Tanya to come forward, and I'll turn this over to her.
Okay, thank you very much. Really excited to be working with you here today. I have to tell you, this group of young people, they're laughing hysterically at me because as we were singing the happy birthday song, I looked at my daughter and said, I know this one. And then I proceeded to sing all the wrong words because you're on a different version. All right, today really, when we think about living on mission, is about sharing leadership. And oftentimes when we share leadership, we sometimes think that's about critiquing or really thinking about things in a more critical manner. But today, it's more about being proactive. It's about engaging in a discussion and building on ideas. So that's what we're really hoping that you'll work with us on today, is really building on some of the ideas that have been built as we've conducted a lot of strategic planning activities over the last number of weeks. So what we want you to do, your mission today, is to work in teams. You can work either in pairs, or if you want to work as a whole table, that's fine, On your table, there is one strategic pillar listed on the brown paper. And you also have a description of that strategic pillar. So working together for just about 10 minutes, I want you to write down some ideas on how we can live on mission related to this strategic theme. The ground rules are, it has to be actionable. So it's not about critiquing that particular strategic theme, it's about how could that be possible? What's the art of the possible? How could we demonstrate that? How could we live on message related to that strategic theme? So it needs to be action-oriented. At the 10-minute mark, I'm going to ring my little chime here. I could also yell because I'm a former teacher and I have a great teacher voice, but we're going to ring this chime.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to have you switch topics. You don't have to move because we have limited space. What you do need to do, though, is negotiate for your next topic. So one person from your table will take your brown paper and your descriptor, and you're going to trade it for another topic and another piece of brown paper. And you have to do this very quickly because we have limited time. So you're going to get a chance to do 3 topics over the next couple of minutes together. Before we begin, I would like to read to you, though, the strategic themes based on the strategic planning process so far. So I'm going to read the descriptors to you. So the first one, 7 days, not just Sunday. Who has that? Who has that topic? Great. So the descriptor, just for those of you who haven't read the descriptor yet, this is the ability to reach congregation members and potential members on their terms and on their schedule. That's required as part of responding in a proactive way to the changing environment, implementing creative ways to reach the community through technology, scheduling, outreach, and unique offerings, which will be paramount to St. David's future success. The second one, radically welcoming. Who has that topic? Great. So under radically welcoming, this is, the descriptor is, it is recognized as an opportunity to be more welcoming and forward-thinking when it comes to diversity, bringing the community into St. David's and becoming a viable option for more segments of the surrounding communities for all demographics. This would be part of St. David's signature differentiator in the community, to be the most welcoming organization in the Valley by creating an experience that is all about developing a sense of belonging and family. The youth group particularly emphasized this strategic pillar. Next, community stewards. Who do we have for community stewards? Okay. Under community stewards, it says the backbone of St. David's is its role as a steward in the community and living its mission to provide a destination guided by Christian values. The theme of building relationships was a constant and focused on the need to leverage the relationships that St. David's has with its members, local schools, and other community neighbors. Opportunities to expand into the community through increased community services, such as offering programs to the younger demographic, offering out the facilities for group functions, better engaging shut-ins by providing live streaming options or examples. Developing partnerships with like-minded individuals or organizations will create awareness for the quality work that St. David's facilitates and can lead to opportunities to gain further outreach in the community. Next one, focused growth. Where are my focused growth tables? Couple? Okay, under focused growth, the financial stability of St. David's is of the utmost importance, and this requires a bias toward growth. This includes growth of the congregation, growth of income, growth of attendance, growth of offerings, and endowments. The important role St. David's plays in the community will only be sustained by building and growing a strong and viable church. Over the next 3 years, a consistent and intentional focus on growth will be a priority. And then finally, sharing leadership. Who has that? Excellent. A more inclusive approach to church and community leadership is required to increase engagement within the church and among other churches. This strategic priority requires St. David's to identify and take advantage of opportunities to work with other organizations and churches within our community, build engagement internally by providing opportunities for youth and others to lead, and create a sense of responsibility for leadership for every individual involved with St. David's. So those are the descriptors of the 5 strategic pillars. You have just about 10 minutes. We're gonna walk around and make sure you don't have any questions, but don't be concerned about order of how you're writing. It's really about brainstorming, and don't get too hung up with the only thing I will ask you is write neatly. All right, so first 10 minutes starts now.
Anyone else want to write? I will print it. I like what Bruce was talking about when he was talking about what they were doing at when you first got to the idea of identifying a new person. As soon as a new person came in, it's almost like they had a team identifying new people. They had greeters? One of the things you said that I liked, you said that they followed up the next week when you went back, they came back and looked for you, and the welcome team followed up. Yeah, that's right. they come back to you, they look for you, and then they come back to you and shake your hand again. They really do want me to come back. It's like you first you engage them, and then get them to join in. Yes. Yep. Exactly. That's not why we come. Maybe interest in music. Pamphlets Yes, I got that from my pamphlets, activities and committees, but especially invite newcomers to talk. It's almost like as soon as you identify a newcomer, a team will be assigned to them. Not just that Sunday, but ongoing. You keep them involved, to keep them around. It's a responsibility on that. So it's almost like okay, we got a new guy coming in. You've got this guy. He's yours. You own this guy. Get him. And it's like, you have to get his phone number, you have to get his phone number, you have to get all the particulars about this person so you can find what really, honestly, well, you have just but let's say you didn't, let's say you missed the first game. Would it not? Yeah, wouldn't it be reasonable to I didn't do that. That's right. Have one person exchange your page. And then start again. That was my focus group. You want focus group?
Anybody want to share the
If there's any spelling errors, Bonnie, that's fine. I appreciate the feedback.
Maybe a wish that you might have. This is going in the same direction. A good example is just exactly. And then so that's part of the struggle, pulling in the same direction. That way exactly. Isn't that essentially driving the board? But the board's faster. Because now it was a motion made, people voted for it. The board, like I mentioned earlier, that yes.
Because when Reverend Allen got really, he got so he got the pictures of money, and he didn't like it. So you're right. What? We're on a different sheet now. You missed that. You think we're on the same sheet.
But I think
Separate.
I didn't acquire that.
She didn't read it. So we don't know what we're doing. Did you read this clearly? Did you see this? You know, in sharing leadership, I think another part of it is developing. In any organization, you've got leaders leading and leaders developing. So we really need to have some sort of program or whatever, and even use the endeavor that identifies potential leaders and develops them. I don't know how we do it. You can't have leaders without developing them. Oh yeah, after we get all the answers, you come back.
all right, last round. Choose wisely your last topic.
This is fun to watch.
Okay, so we should just simply do this again. Yep, they're
You guys want a paper? Okay, you better get out. Just did that? Get your paws off this one. Okay.
Community steward. The backbone of civic agency is its role as a steward in the community, and living its mission to provide a destination guided by Christian values. The theme of building relationships is a constant and focus on the need to integrate relationships in its members, local schools, and their community agencies. Upward will expand this community through increased community services such as offering programs for younger demographics, offering outreach facilities for group functions, better engagement studies by providing live stream options and examples, providing partnerships with like-minded individuals and organizations to create awareness for the quality of work in Davis facilities and relief opportunities for further outreach into the community. So, that's the That's right. They call it social media. Good morning, how are you? You're here to count? Okay. Money's a means to man. Money's a means to man. What we really want to do is be reaching out to the community and engaging more people. That's our goal. I mean, that's what keeps us coming. Yeah, that's a good point. What are they doing? What is the Wesleyan Church doing? How are they doing
We're not in music, but it's something that we
exactly?
All right, that was the final round. So just to wrap up, a couple of things. I want to talk to you for a second about what it truly means to share leadership. We actually had a family who had to go to hockey, of course. My hockey rink days are over, but I do know that that's still a priority for many in our community. And as they were leaving, their comment was, we are so engaged and feel this activity is so important, we'd like to send you our feedback. As a family, we're going to sit down and talk about this, and we're going to send you some feedback on what we think some actions could be. So that's really stepping up into that leadership role. That's an example of modeling behavior around living on mission. What I'd like you to do now is, I'd like 2 volunteers from your table to just stand up with your brown paper. We're going to form a ring around the gym. So I'd have this table start here. And we're going to just have a look visually at what it truly means to share leadership. So just have 2 people from your team willing to stand up with it. And I want you to hold it up around the gym. We're going to ring the gym with our shared leadership.
Oh, yeah, right.
Think about what you just did in 30 minutes that will help St. David's move into the future by stepping up and being proactive around thinking about what it could look like. What is the art of the possible? And so when we think about sharing leadership, you are ringed now with a shared leadership result And it's interesting because as I was watching you move, people made space for others coming forward with their brown paper. And sharing leadership is about making space for other people to lead, but also being willing to join the circle. Thank you for your time and attention. Great work. And I'm going to hand it back over to the expert, Alicia. Thank you. You can sit down. Actually, can you please bring those forward? I'll take the brown paper.
You have a license for this? You get mine. Oh, yeah. Because the professional can if they're doing 7 years.
This has been, sorry to make people jump when I spoke. I will say it's been amazing to walk around, see how engaged everybody is. People that came today and had no idea this is what we were doing became very engaged very quickly. And I know Christopher and I both said we are hearing some interesting things that we need like 10 of us to do all these things because we want to do them all now. Of course, it takes time. But thank you for participating in this and doing this during worship style because it has given us this opportunity and maybe allowed more of you to participate than as if we would have held it on an alternate day. All that we have and all that we are is God's. During our Lenten journey, our task is to use these things, our ideas, our gifts, our lives, our love, to live God's command to love as we live on mission. Our morning offering will be received. Let us take time for prayer. You call us to live full and faithful lives, God, and living entails both growth and change. Whether we're expanding our minds, stretching our hearts, or steering the church in bold new directions, the only thing that remains constant is your love and the need to overcome today's challenges with innovation and imagination. So bless this offering, whether made by plate or by par, that we might seek new horizons and build towards tomorrow with energy, enthusiasm, and the kind of off-the-wall thinking that made Jesus such a revolutionary in his own time. Help us to dream of new ways to connect and minister to our community. There are injustices to right, there are people to comfort, and so many who are in need of aid that we cannot name or frame their needs in prayer in any way that does them justice. Prod us to reach out to them and make your presence known to them in all that we say and do. Help us also to look beyond what we know of church so that we might see it not only for what it is, but what it could be. Make us creative in our approach to worship and set our imagination loose as we envision the countless ways we can learn and love and grow as a community in Christ. As we continue our Lenten journey, exploring what it means to live on mission, give us the courage to risk, the wisdom to discern, and the strength to achieve all that we dare dream in your name, and the compassion to support each other throughout the process. You have called us to move and grow in new and different directions, God. May we do so with both passion and purpose, this day and always. Amen. Amen. And as we conclude our time of worship this morning, before we have cake, and I see everybody eyeing the cake, we'll join our voices in singing, "We Have This Ministry." The words are here on your page. What we say reveals what we think is important. What we do shows others how we live out our mission. In our lives, may we share acts of kindness and live our beliefs through signs of faith made real. Let us go forth today to live our faith in this world. Amen.
I don't have the music here for that. It's upstairs. Anna, don't play by memory.